things I just want to say as I go on. First of all, everybody in this room should be very proud of the people that put this on. The university, if you start to realize it, is really changing in terms of their athletic department, in terms of the way they're going back and looking at the great history that this university has. And it's all because of Mr. Mizuto and his staff and those individuals that are involved in producing this. And some of you might not know a little bit about Coach Heegert. When he says that he came on the mound and, you know, basically told me to throw strikes, and I'm going to tell you a short story to probably sum up things. Coach, at the national championship game that he's referring to, we had lost to Missouri State. Then was called Southwest Missouri State, but now called Missouri State. We had lost to them the first game, and they had a really good ball club. And I had been, even though I was an All-American candidate at the time, I came back from South Dakota at the College All-Star League with a sore elbow. I had pitched 4 consecutive days in a row. Started, relieved, started. And in today's world, that would never happen. I wouldn't let my kids do that. But in those days, that's what went on. But Coach, on that night, before we played Missouri State again, we either go into the championship game or we go home. Coach came that night with Coach Marquez, Coach Davila, Laurie Grisham, into my room, and Coach Marquez says to me, you know, this is your game tomorrow. You're going to be, you know, when you're on, there's nobody better. And when you're not, Coach looks at me and he says, you walk one guy, you're coming out. No, this is true. I'm not fooling, this is true. I kind of look at him and look at myself, and that's it, walks out. Okay, I know my job, I know what I'm supposed to do. Now, you have to remember the times like he was talking about in 1970. You know, Vietnam, a lot of civil rights issues, people being beaten up. This university, one of the most significant people in my life, Stan Chernofsky, and I don't know if Stan's here or not, but those kind of people, along with the coaches, were embroiled in a lot of conflicts with Black Student Union, a lot of civil rights stuff that thank God they got done. We needed to have it done. Things like that. Mr. Watkins will tell you what it was like at those times. And during those times, it was really difficult for somebody like me because it stirred up so much emotions. Well, Coach was a real smart man. And the guy he talked about, the coach, Squire from Mount Sac, knew kind of how to push my buttons. And when Coach told me, you walk one guy, well, hey, first batter, what am I going to do? No, I throw 3 balls, right? Okay, I look over and I just see this look on his face, meaning somebody in the bullpen, get somebody warmed up. Right? I look around and I realized I gotta get to work here. I don't, you know. And it came back and struck the guy out on 3 pitches. And the rest is is history. But what is really the history is my background. Where I came from, how I grew up, the roots that I have. Half my family on my mother's side, actually my mother's side of the family, is buried in a mission in Riverside, outside of Riverside, California, called Agua Mansa. And they're buried in the Indian section. In those days, Indian and Mexican people were on this side, and non-Indian people were on that side. And when I was a little boy, we used to go out and clean up the cemetery plots. There were little sticks. And we'd try to find my grandmother, her sisters, other parts of the family. And eventually got to the place where the family could afford the cemetery plot and with marble. And we got that done for my grandmother. And as a kid, my father was in World War II, was a scout, was for a year and a half in the Philippines, and was shot in Leyte Island through the shoulder, and he came back and rehabilitated for about a year and a half. But he suffered from this thing that unfortunately comes with war, and you're going to see this a lot more when our soldiers get back. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Well, post-traumatic stress disorder, if not treated, gets worse, gets worse, gets worse. And anybody in here, I'm sure, who themselves or has family members who've suffered from that, have heard the screams at night, have had the pain of living with somebody who doesn't want to talk about it, but you know it lives within them. And I've always said that it's the experiences in life that shape our person. And the soul doesn't record time, just events. And those events lived in my father. So my house at night was kind of a scary place sometimes. And eventually my household was destroyed by that. And I grew up, and thank God for aunts and uncles and grandparents. And eventually ended up in a Catholic rectory. And I know the Catholic Church has gotten a lot of bad publicity and some bad things because certain priests have done certain things they shouldn't do. Well, that wasn't my case. Father Gian, Father Savard, Monsignor Thompson, they all took an interest in me and actually kind of built a foundation for me. And they, sounds funny, but they really taught me how to be a good student, taught me to read. But the one thing they couldn't do was deal with all the pain and the emotions that I had inside of me. As I got older, nobody in my house finished high school. Nobody. Well, I finished high school, so first thing I did was get a job in a steel factory, working midnight to 7 in the morning. Midnight to 7 in the morning. One day, some guy shows up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and he introduces himself and says, "Son, you have a career in baseball." Well, God, I don't know who this guy is. He's a molester. I don't know who this guy is. And it turns out that his name is Ron Squire, who had written 2 books on pitching, and you had to take a test before you ever pitched one pitch in a ball game with him. And test on pitching? You had to throw it cross seams or with the seams, you rear back and you throw it. How do you write a book on that? Well, this man was brilliant. And he taught me. He taught me how to look at a person's stance, the way they hold a bat, what happened last time, what kind of pitcher are you, what's working for you, what isn't working for you, how to throw this, how to throw it. All of a sudden, wow, there's a lot to this thing called pitching. But I still had little problems with control a little bit. It was either strike 3 guys out or walk 3 guys. And thank God I had the best infield in the country. Ron Valeni, Mike McClure, Skip Effler, Frank Slayton, who we lost, and the great Zach, who you guys honored just recently. And those guys got me through a lot of games because I learned, okay, if I don't strike you out, here, hit this. Oh, thank you, they'll play. See you guys later, you know? And that became kind of a intellectual theme in my head. And started to learn how to do that correctly. As I got older, and as we grew as a team, during those times, you have to remember what times we're in. And we were like everybody else. We had disputes, we had arguments, and half the time nobody knew what I was talking about, you know. And guys would tease me and laugh, say, oh, that's an Indian thing, you know. Forget it, you know. Well, in 69, or 70, when I came back from the College All-Star League in South Dakota, on the board, to show you how much we grew, on the board was an article in Baseball Collegiate Magazine. And it talked about the top pitchers in the country. And talked about me being one of the top pitchers in the country. Well, somebody had written across it, the coaches had put it up, and somebody had written across it, bullshit. You know, it kind of hurt my feelings, but that's where we started. By the end, those guys had my back. When we were in oh man, I said I wouldn't do it. When we were in the College World Series, and people were describing me using the N-word, people were, and my father was there. It's the only time he ever got to see me pitch. Like I said, so long in Corey's events, not time. But he got to see me pitch. Thank God I got past those 3 balls. But like I said, the coach was smart. He knew what to say, and he knew how to bring that out of me. And that's what good coaching is. I've learned. What good coaching is that guy seeing at 6 o'clock in the morning, this tall, brown, skinny guy that he can see can be something. Not just in baseball, but in life. I was fortunate to have somebody like that. I was fortunate to have a coach like Coach Eager, because he saw me. He saw what I could do. He knew when to pat me on the back, and he knew when to get in my face. And that's what good coaches do. They know. They know how to treat each player as an individual and what brings things out in each one of those guys. And I was fortunate to have that. And as I stand before you, this university was that for me. As my grandfather would say, you can have the best seeds in the world, but if you don't throw them on fertile soil, you're going to be disappointed with the yield. But if you take those seeds and you put them in good soil, in good environment, they'll blossom. And that's what this university has done. And we should be very, very proud of that. Because as we go down the road here, because of people like Mr. Mizuto and his staff, I think we're going to have more of that. I think we're going to have more of these meetings. I think we're going to have more and more great athletes. And I'm right now hoping to get my tribe to put up a scholarship. So some little skinny brown kid can come here, play ball. And if they're lucky, they'll have a coach who knows how to bring the best out of them. Like this university brought the best out of me. Thank you.